This right here is the original Shadowlight that we released 4 years ago, and it's been a bestseller ever since then. It's won industry awards, it has a lot of accolades, and obviously thousands of you guys have bought this pack and taken it out on trail. This right here is the new and improved Shadowlight 60-liter pack. And in this video, I want to walk you through the differences in these two packs. But before we do that, I need to explain what makes these two packs interesting and unique to begin with. When we originally set out to design the Shadowlight, we wanted to design something that was much more approachable as an ultralight backpack. So it was sub 2 pounds. That was one of the things that it had to be. But it also needed to have more options for organization. It also needed to have more access into the backpack, such as these access zippers right there into the main compartment, and just be a lot easier to approach than other ultralight packs out there. And then of course, one of the big things here is that with those heavier packs, they often do come with increased load carrying abilities. And that's something that we really wanted to manage, was having a full-sized frame in here that can actually load lift the load off of your shoulders and down to your hips. And I think we nailed all of that. But just like with anything, it's always good to be reinventing your own wheel and improving things. And that's exactly what this pack is right here. We've taken your feedback, we've taken our feedback, we've implemented it here, and we've tried to keep everything that you guys really loved about the original Shadowlight. So let's dive into those changes and why those refinements have made a drastically new and improved backpack. Let's start by talking about the biggest change in these packs, which is the new frame and suspension system. Both of these packs still have those tall frames that allow you to load lift, but we went from an aluminum frame in our old model, that this is a tubed aluminum that is connected here at the top. We changed that to a carbon fiber frame. Now this is an evolution of the CS40's frame that we started to do specifically for the weight savings of carbon, because you save about half of the weight going from an aluminum frame to a carbon frame. But the bigger thing that really sold us on carbon was the pliability, the play that you have in this. It bends, it moves with your body. As you move, it feels like an extension of you, versus an aluminum frame has a much more harsh ride. When you try to bend this frame, essentially, it will bend, but you'll notice it actually only wants to bend in one spot. And obviously it can't bend too far or it will permanently stay in a piece of metal or aluminum like that. Versus this carbon has a much easier play. It starts to progressively play, and then the farther you bend carbon, the more stiff it gets. So what that means is that as you use this frame, it allows you to bend, move, have some pliability, some play in here, and just gives you a much, much more comfortable ride compared to an aluminum frame. When I go back to an aluminum frame now, I just feel like the ride of the backpack is much more harsh, and that it's not so much a part of my body, but a foreign object on my body. So this is a huge improvement. That did save us a little bit of weight, but mainly it added a ton of comfort. It's worth noting how much we believe in this by putting our money where our mouth is. Even though we're not trying to raise the price on this backpack hardly at all, you should know that this carbon fiber frame costs 10 times more than an aluminum frame. But that's how much we believe in it. All right, let's talk about the hip belts on these packs. The new Shadowlight backpack actually gives you more contact with your hips. We've narrowed this channel down here that allows this to come around and hug your hips that much more compared to our previous model. This bottom section is a little bit wider. So this additional contact just allows it to really form fit around your hips, hug your hips, and allows for a more stable way to carry heavier loads more comfortably. Not that you have to carry heavy loads to feel the comfort difference, but it's worth noting that that additional contact does a lot for you. We also changed and tweaked the cut of some of the shoulder harnesses, and we played around with different foams here. So this is more of a solid sheet of foam, whereas this has cutouts all the way through it. If I could strip this open, you would be able to see and feel these cutouts for venting that also provide more comfort. Now we did a bunch of samples of different types of foam to dial this in and to dial this cut in, and I think it's a real game changer. Now another thing that you're going to notice here, out of the entire pack, this may be the one feature that some of you are going to miss from the old pack, and that is this removable back panel. Now, the removable back panel on our previous model was great. You could pull that off. You could use it as a seat pad or for your feet. However, the other part of doing a removable model is that this can sometimes, with sweat and time, move around a little bit. It's just locked in here by this mesh, and that mesh sometimes can allow it to shift up or down, or you also take it off and introduce debris and things to the back of your backpack. Now, because the number one purpose of a backpack is to ride comfortably and carry your things all day long, we decided to move away from that and go to a fully locked in back panel that has a ton of cutouts here for venting and comfort. But again, this is not going to be removable. I think the other side of this is just that in our own testing, we have been using for years now the 1/8" foam pads and just slapping them on the top here. They weigh about 2 ounces and they're much more usable than the back panel on this thing. So I think that if you're worried about losing that, just get the 1/8" foam piece and you'll be way impressed with the new back panel, and it provides for a much more consistent carry every single time. Let's talk about these back pockets. These back pockets, and just it is worth noting, this is actually a small torso size versus a medium. So there are some minor tweaks here in size, but we went from the mesh here to an ultra stretch mesh. The reason for that was the one failure point, and we have backpacks we've gotten back from customers that have hiked 3,000 miles in these. The number one failure point was going to be this mesh. It wasn't so much a failure of just it stretching and failing as a material, but more an issue of if you backed up into a really sharp tree, or you put something in here that was really sharp and it just had too much pressure, you could get some little holes in this mesh. So moving to this ultra stretch mesh, that's going to completely go away. It really added a ton of durability in this. This is a fabric we've used in the Skyline Fast Pack, and it's just absolutely incredible for durability. So we improved the durability on these. As far as the pocketing goes themselves, they're roughly the same volume. However, we did volumize this new one more. So even though this mesh is a little bit different, a little different feel, it is much more volumized than the previous model. Obviously, we did keep the internal access right here to get into and out of your pack. I will just say this. There are a lot of people that have polarizing views on this, but personally, and from feedback from customers, this is a super nice feature to have. I just hiked 140 miles on the Colorado Trail. I use this multiple times a day to grab food, to tuck my windbreaker inside so it's out of the elements. Because this pack, while it is not waterproof, it is highly water resistant. So I don't worry about stuff if it's inside the pack, unless it's like torrential downpour for hours. So I was often accessing this to grab my food out or to grab a windbreaker or any other things that might just be quick access. And that way I don't have to unpack the top of this bag every time I want something in it. Now let's talk about these upper side access pockets. These right here did get changed. There's a substantial difference in the volume of these two pockets. This newer one has a much bigger volume. I like to put like my Tokes pot and cook system up here on one side, and now I can get that in and out really, really well, even if the bag is fully loaded, versus on this old one, I was often trying to push into the bag to make room there for that. So a lot more volume. I mean, eyeballing it, I almost feel like this is double the volume of these older pockets. Obviously, if you don't want them, they can go away flat against the pack. And then we changed this draw closure here. This works so much better, so much faster. This system here, you kind of sometimes had to nurse this fabric over to get it as tight as you wanted. Good system, but this is much more fast and much more clean to use. We also had a lot of requests for adding drain holes. So we do have drain holes in all of these pockets and in the main bag, so that if you ever got water in any of those pockets, it drains right out. Let's talk about these bottom side pockets. You can see there is going to be a difference here. Mainly, we added additional volume to these bottom side pockets so that when you're running 2 smart water bottles, like 1 liter smart water bottles, they're easier to get in and out because it's just not quite so tight in there. So there is that added space here, which is very, very nice because the way that these sit on the backpack, they sit very low, which means that you can grab them while you're on the go, while that backpack is on your body. Okay. The hip belts here, we did keep them very large. I don't know if there's really an increase in volume here. I don't feel like there's much of an increase in volume, but I can tell you there is an improvement in function. With this pack now, and I'll try to just demonstrate this, you can operate this one-handed a lot more smooth and a lot easier because we've moved the zipper position. And so even though this is completely empty, there's nothing in there, I'm still able to operate that one-handed, whereas on the previous model, it was a little bit harder. It could operate one-handed, but not quite as smooth, and especially it was a little bit harder if there wasn't anything in the pocket to hold some of that rigidity. One of the biggest requests that we had on the older model was for an increase in length on this upper strap right here, so that when you're trying to strap a lot of things on here, or maybe even a bear can, that you just had more length. On this model here, we actually went to a full Y system. So this is gonna clip just like this over the top, and we did add a lot more volume here. So you've got a lot more space to strap things to the top of this pack, and they are more secure because of the Y nature, that complete contact over the top of the bag. The last thing I'm going to talk about here is just that we did add lashing loops to the pack. So you'll see as I move this around a little bit, there's a lashing point there, lashing point here. On the bottom of the pack here, there's also these lashing loops. So I've sometimes lashed like a chair to the bottom of this pack when I've wanted to do that. But it just gives you the ability to customize your pack however you want. Now, those are all the differences. I'm not going to go into what makes this pack so great just yet, but we really worked to keep the same design intent on this pack, but improve it. You can see we've added volume, we've added additional strapping, we've added lashing points, we've done all these things, but it is exactly the same weight as the previous model, which I feel like is exceptional. We kept all of the things you guys liked, being able to compress these things down, the access, and everything that's so good, especially the load carry. But I'm just gonna finish off this video by adding my personal experience with this pack. Just this year alone, not even through testing, but just this year alone, I've had two separate experiences where I've really loaded this backpack up. One was a pack rafting trip where I had 30 to 40 pounds, depending on the water I was carrying in this backpack. Another was a 6-day Colorado Trail through hike. We did a big section of 140 miles over 6 days. So I had 6 days worth of supplies in this thing with no resupply. And on both of those scenarios, I was absolutely blown away at how comfortable this pack is. I think it's the best carrying ultralight pack out there right now, and I'm really excited for you guys to see that for yourself, not to mention the access and keeping the weight down like we have. So there you have it. Those are the differences in the first gen Shadowlight and our new generation Shadowlight 60. This is gonna come in 3 torso sizes, 5 hip belt sizes, and a single color. So really looking forward to getting this in your guys' hands. Can't wait to hear what you guys think about that and about this pack and the differences, and we'll catch you guys in a future video.